Please subscribe for this YouTube channel for all the updates. Hello everyone, I am Mr. Ashok Kumar from VTUprojects.com and AKLC. In this video I am going to briefly walk you through about the project design and implementation of HDFS data encryption scheme using area algorithm on Hadoop. So all I am going to do in this video is just explaining what actually the project will do. I am not going to focus anything about how actually the project will be implemented because you are still in the beginning stage and you cannot understand anything from the implementation perspective. So please watch this video completely and go to your college guide and explain the project as it is, as seen in this video. But definitely they are going to ask you one or more questions like tell me more about the algorithm or the technologies or the solution you are going to implement. Some or the other questions will be definitely asked by them. So you have to request them to give one more day of time to answer all those questions. So you need to note down all those questions and send all those questions to me over an email to this email address aklc.contact@gmail.com. You can compose all those questions in an email and send it across to me, or you can also call me on 97420240666 if you need the answers right away. So once I answer all of those questions, you can go to them and answer it as it is. So these are the things that I am going to explain in this video. I am going to quickly walk you through the quick facts, prerequisites, problem statement, existing system along with their drawbacks, proposed system and its advantages, and finally hardware and software requirements. So these are the quick facts that you people have to know about your project. So the domain of this particular project will be big data, and the base paper indicates from where actually we got the idea from. Okay, this idea is from an IEEE 2017 paper. Algorithm, the algorithm that we are going to use in our project will be area algorithm, and the framework and the platform where actually we are going to run our project and making use of which development framework. Okay, so we are going to make use of Hadoop framework. Okay, that will be installed on Linux or an Cent operating system. Okay, the number of lines of code, an estimated number of lines of code in this particular project will be around 3,500 to 4,000 lines of code. Okay, so on an average your university might expect students to write somewhere around 1,000 lines of code. Okay, you can check with any other institute project, or you can check with your senior project or somewhere. On an average a university will expect you to write 1,000 lines of code, but this project alone will contain around 3,000 to 4,000 lines of code. Okay, so that doesn't mean that the project will be difficult. So because of the functionality and the features we are going to add in this particular project, the lines of code will be more. Okay, but you don't have to worry about that because we are going to train you on each and every single line of code. Okay, and the percentage of the database used in this particular project will be only around 5 to 6% of the database. Okay, the reason why I have put up this point here is because the university have a rule, no project should cross about 20% of the database. Okay, but we are well within the safer side because we are only going to use around 5 to 6% of the database. So here I am going to quickly give you a brief introduction to what big data is and what Hadoop is. So firstly, to speak something about big data, as the name itself will indicate, big data is something to deal with the huge amount of data. Okay, so I am going to take an example. So one research says that from the start of the time where we started to collect the digital data, say for example from 1940 till 2010. Okay, one research says we have collected around 15% of data. Okay, so whereas from the past 5 to 6 to 7 years, from 2010 to current, okay, the research says we have collected around 85% of data. Okay, so if you see the result of this particular research, right, it is clearly understandable that the size of data is getting huge year by year. Okay, so to speak about the sources, so from where actually this huge amount of data comes from. Okay, so you can think about the social media like Facebook. Okay, how many users have their Facebook account? You upload a photo, that's a data. You go and like someone else's status, that's a data. You comment on some post, that's a data. So social media, say for example the Facebook itself will provide, will generate 1 terabytes of data every single day as per the research. Okay, so other sources contains e-commerce, online shopping, and and also the airplane. Okay, if you have heard about the airplane black box technology, right? So that airplane black box is something that will have the information about whatever comes in its way, like the weather information, the temperature, the humidity, whatever it is. So it just starts collecting the data whenever a flight is running from a source to destination. Okay, it has been estimated that a single flight that runs for say Bangalore to Pune, okay, will produce the same amount of data as that of Facebook's 1 day data. Okay, so and everything is getting digitalized so far. So for example, health data, a single DNA report also will contain very huge amount of data. Okay, so these are some of the examples where the data are coming from. Okay, so day by day, the year by year, the amount of data we are collecting is increasing like anything. Okay, so but you have to understand, the problem is not with collection of data. We have pretty much storage devices. There's no limit in storing the huge amount of data. Okay, but the problem is in processing the collected data. Okay, it has been said that we have simply collected huge amount of data, but there is no efficient way for processing the data. Okay, so this is what we call it as big data problem. Okay, so I'll just repeat. So the big data problem is not with respect to the collection of data. It is with respect to processing the collected data. Okay, so for processing this huge amount of data, right, there are many solutions. Okay, like NoSQL database, graph database, something like that. Okay, Hadoop is one such solution for processing this huge amount of data. Okay, so this is something that you people have to know about what big data and what big data problem is all about. Okay, so now speaking about Hadoop, right, as I told you, Hadoop is one such solution for processing huge amount of data. Okay, so before Hadoop, what was what you people were used for processing the data? So for example, you have used MySQL database, Oracle database, something like that. Okay, so but Oracle database and MySQL database, they are grouped into a kind of RDBMS called a relational database. Okay, so this relational database management systems are not efficient for processing huge amount of data. Okay, so I'll tell you the reason why. Say for example, assume that you have to store a college student information. So you are going to create a student table. Okay, you want to store the department information. You are going to create a department table. You want to store the project information. You are going to create project table, and something like that. Okay, so in student, right, you will have USN, you will have name and department number as the columns, and in department you will have department number, which is the primary key, and department name. Okay, and in project you will have the USN. Okay, the name of the USN of the student, and the project number and the project name. Okay, so you can see a single student information has been spanned across 3 tables. Okay, so let us take a scenario. Assume that there are 100 students. Okay, so belonging to 5 department: CS, IS, electronics, telecommunication, mechanical, something like that, and all 100 students are working on, say for example, 50 projects. Okay, assuming 2 students per project, something like that. Okay, so you can see 100 students information have been spanned across the 3 tables. Okay, so the example I have taken here is to prove that RDBMS is not at all suitable for processing huge amount of data. Let us understand why. Okay, so now how will you pull out all the student names and their respective department names and their respective project names? Okay, I want to write a query that will list out all the student names their respective department names and their respective project names. So what are we going to do? We are going to join all the three tables. Okay, so join operation is something that is very costly in RDBMS. Okay, so if you join these three tables, right, maximum of 100 into 5 into 50 rows will be generated. Okay, say 100 into 5 is 500, 500 into 50. Okay, so 100 into 5 into 50 rows will be generated. Okay, so which is 500 into 50, so which happens to be 25,000. So that becomes 25,000 records. You can imagine. So but the result will be only 100 students, but DBMS would have internally processed 25,000 records. Just to pull out 100 students data, DBMS internally processed 25,000 records. Okay, this is the reason why we say RDBMS is suitable only for small amount of data. Okay, we don't prefer RDBMS for large amount of data, for big data. Okay, so that is why we speak about Hadoop. Okay, so now let me briefly walk you through what Hadoop is all about. Okay, you know that Hadoop is basically for processing big data, right? For understanding the working of Hadoop, I am going to give you a real-time scenario. Assume that you have to copy a file of 1 GB size into a laptop having 2 Mbps rate of transfer. Okay, so that means this laptop can copy 2 MB data in 1 second. So you have to calculate what will be the total time taken for copying 1 GB file. 1 GB file is nothing but 1000 MB, right? So for 2 MB it will take 1 second, for 100 MB it will take 50 seconds, so for 1000 MB it will take 500 seconds. Okay, so the calculation is very simple. This laptop will be taking 500 seconds for copying that 1 GB file. This is the problem. 500 seconds is too much. Okay, you have to reduce the total time taken. How will you do that? Okay, so let me explain the solution for you. Okay, the solution is what, rather than copying this file into one machine, okay, I am going to bring n such machines, something like this. Okay, I am going to bring 5 such laptops like this. Okay, and I am going to divide this 1000 MB file into 5 pieces. Okay, where each piece will be 200 MB, like this. And I am going to copy each part of that file, I mean each partition of that original file into a different laptop like this. Okay, so now if you calculate the speed of one laptop, if you calculate the time taken by one laptop, okay, this laptop will have to copy this 200 MB file, this laptop will have to copy this 200 MB file, like that. Okay, so for 1 second it will copy 2 MB, so for copying 200 MB it will require 100 seconds. Okay, this laptop will be requiring 100 seconds for copying that file. Okay, same 100 seconds will be taken by all the other laptops. Okay, what you people have to note down is all the laptops will be working parallelly because they are independent from each other. So overall time taken is just 100 seconds. Okay, so if you compare this time taken, originally we had 500 seconds, but now we reduce the time taken to 100 seconds, right? So this is the basic idea behind the working of Hadoop. Okay, so the solution is very simple. Rather than storing the entire data in one machine, divide that big data into small pieces and store them in multiple machines. Okay, so this is the basic principle behind working of Hadoop. Okay, so now to proceed further, I'll explain what actually meant by Hadoop. Okay, so before I go to Hadoop, you people are very well aware of MySQL. That means even you can take about Oracle. Okay, you know how MySQL database or Oracle database will work, right? Okay, basically MySQL database and Oracle database will be providing you two things. What are those? Capability for storing the data and capability for processing the data, right? So how actually MySQL will provide support for storing the data. All the data stored in your MySQL will be stored in your local machine. In the laptop where you have installed MySQL or Oracle, there only the data will be stored. Okay, how actually this MySQL and Oracle will provide support for processing the data? It will provide SQL query. Okay, so using this SQL query, you can process the data stored in MySQL, right? Same way. Okay, so Hadoop also the same thing. Okay, so if I speak about Hadoop, okay, Hadoop also will provide you capability for storing the data, and Hadoop also will provide the support for processing the data. Okay, so how actually Hadoop will provide support for storing the data? As you've seen earlier, it will store the data not in a single machine. Okay, it will store the data in a distributed machine. Okay, it will store the data in multiple machines. Okay, so we call that as HDFS. Okay, full form for HDFS will be Hadoop Distributed File System. Hadoop Distributed File System, right? And how actually Hadoop will provide you support for processing the data? Through a programming model called MapReduce. Through MapReduce program. Okay, so this is the comparison between your traditional RDBMS and Hadoop. Okay, so Hadoop will provide storage capability through HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System, and Hadoop will provide you processing capability through MapReduce program. Okay, that means if you have to retrieve the data stored in MySQL, you have to write an SQL query. If you want to retrieve the data stored in Hadoop, you have to write a MapReduce program. Okay, it's a very big program. Basically, you cannot write a one-line SQL query kind of thing. You have to write a very big program itself called MapReduce program. Okay, so this is the basic idea about Hadoop. So this diagram will summarize the working of Hadoop. Okay, so if you can see the input data, Hadoop basically will contain basically two things, a name node and data node. Okay, so where name node will be only one in number, and there may be n number of data nodes. Okay, so you will understand in detail about what is name node and data node in the later classes, project classes actually. But as of now, what you need to understand in with respect to working of Hadoop, you know, whenever you give an input file to Hadoop, it will be received by name node. Okay, and name node is the one which is going to divide this input file into small pieces. Okay, and each of those small pieces will be stored in data node. Okay, so what actually data node will contain? Data node will actually contain small pieces of input data. Okay, so because the input data will be distributed across multiple nodes, node is nothing but a machine. Okay, so because the input data is distributed across a multiple machines, we call it as a distributed file system, and this is provided by Hadoop. So we call this as HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. Okay, so these are the few prerequisites that you need to know about Hadoop. You need to understand what is HDFS and what is MapReduce. Okay, so now let us come to the problem statement. So in the prerequisite, you people have understood the brief idea about Hadoop and big data, right? Now we all know that Hadoop will contain some sensitive data. Okay, basically Hadoop will be used for analysis, right? Analysis of huge amount of data. So this Hadoop might contain sensitive data like medical data, bank data, something like that. Okay, so the problem with existing Hadoop is what, Hadoop provides a solution for processing huge amount of data, but Hadoop itself will not at all provide security to any of the data stored within it, right? So the security of the data stored in Hadoop is actually a major challenge nowadays. Okay, so as per the IEEE author, okay, so the existing researchers on the solution, on the security of the big data, many researchers speaks only about AES algorithm for encrypting the data stored in Hadoop. Okay, but the thing is, many of the government have recommended area algorithm as a standard data encryption approach because it provides, you know, a better security and difficult to break it, something like that. Okay, so the government has recommended area algorithm, but most of the existing systems and, you know, other papers only provide AES algorithm security for the data stored in Hadoop, right? Okay, so this actually happens to be the problem statement. I can formally state it like this. Okay, so the data stored in Hadoop is very sensitive, and, you know, security of the data has to be the highest priority. Unfortunately, the existing researchers support only AES algorithm for data encryption, but the government, many governments have recommended area algorithm as the standard encryption technique. Okay, so this happens to be the problem statement for your project. Okay, so now coming to the systems, existing systems that are currently available for solve the problem we stated earlier. Okay, remember the problem statement is that the data stored in Hadoop is very sensitive and we have to definitely encrypt it because Hadoop will not provide encryption by itself. Okay, so for solving this particular problem, right, so we have 3 existing systems as per the IEEE author. Okay, and also people have to understand that we are not going to explain the working of the existing system because the IEEE author have already studied the working of the existing systems and he have proved that they are not efficient. Okay, so we will simply mention the names of the existing systems and we will mention the drawbacks, and then we will move on to the proposed system. Okay, so as per the IEEE author, there is one existing system called Kerberos which can be used for performing encryption on Hadoop data. Okay, and there is another solution proposed by Liu A. Okay, so he proposed some codec called splittable compression codec. Okay, so according to him, even this technique also can be used for encryption on Hadoop. And there is third system proposed by Park. Okay, so these are the existing researches available for the problem we stated earlier. Okay, but the drawback of each one of them are what, you know. Okay, the drawback of Kerberos is that it cannot operate on distributed data. Okay, so Kerberos can be used only for performing encryption on a single machine, but Hadoop basically will contain distributed machines, right? The data in Hadoop will not be stored in a single machine, it will be stored on a distributed node. Okay, so this happens to be the drawback of Kerberos. Okay, the drawback of the second research called splittable compression codec is that it uses only AES algorithm. Okay, but the government have recommended area algorithm. Okay, because AES is not that safe compared to area. Okay, so the same drawback also applies to the third scheme proposed by Park. Okay, so these are the existing systems and their drawbacks for your project. So now coming to the proposed system and its advantages. So we are going to propose an HDFS data encryption code scheme that uses both area and AES algorithm for encrypting data on Hadoop. That means we are going to combine the advantages of AES and also area. Okay, thus providing a stronger security. Okay, so the advantage of this particular project is what, you know. So the number one, it will also work on distributed data. Okay, you should have seen disadvantages of one of the existing system is that the encryption will not work on the distributed data, that is Kerberos will not work on distributed data. okay, but our scheme will work on distributed data. And number two, the solution happens to be, the encryption happens to be very stronger, okay, because we are combining the advantages of area and AES both. Okay, because government have recommended area algorithm, any of the government project or anybody can reuse our encryption scheme. Okay, so these are the areas where our project will be applicable. Okay, if someone asks you where are your project can be applied, applications of your project, okay, you need to answer them. Our project will be applicable for any of the commercial projects which are using Hadoop. Okay, so for example, Aadhaar card might be using Hadoop for processing their huge amount of data. For encrypting their data, they can simply reuse our codec, okay, for securing the data. Okay, and one more advantage what they are going to get is we are using area algorithm which has been recommended by the government. So that has to be something that is very interesting in this project. Okay. Okay, so these are the detailed hardware and software requirements for our project. So from the hardware requirement perspective, we will be requiring a CPU having 2.4 GHz or above, a processor, and a RAM with minimum 8 GB. This is very important because we need to install Hadoop on top of it, right? So installing Hadoop will make the system slower. Okay, so we will be requiring some better performance RAM. So 8 GB is a must. And hard disk by minimum we will be getting 40 GB hard disk in the market, so we can get that. Okay, apart from that we will be requiring a display monitor, a keyboard, USB device, all those things which are mentioned in the synopsis. You can simply just submit that as it is. Okay, and coming to the software requirements, right, here you are going to explain the details of the technologies you are going to use for implementing this project. Okay, you can see in the backend we are going to use core Java, advanced Java, J2EE, which includes JDBC servlets, JSP as well, and also we are going to use Hadoop's MapReduce programming, and J2EE is a model view controllers framework in the backend. Okay, and in the front end for developing the web pages, the front end view user interface design, we are going to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and an HTML framework called Bootstrap, followed by Ajax and jQuery framework. Okay, and database we don't need any RDBMS. Instead we will simply use HDFS, that to around 5 to 6% of the database. And servers we can use either Apache or Wildfly. And for developing the code, for code development we can go for Eclipse. So these are the hardware and software requirements for your project. I hope you people have understood everything. So just in case if you have any questions or anything that you have to talk to me, so please contact 97420240066, or you can reach me on this email address aklc.contact@gmail.com. Okay, thank you so much. Please subscribe for this YouTube channel for all the updates.